The Israel-Gaza conflict, a seemingly endless cycle of violence and despair, has once again captured the world's attention. A recent ceasefire has brought a tentative pause to the latest eruption of hostilities. However, the situation remains highly volatile, with tensions simmering beneath the surface. The path to a lasting peace remains elusive, and the specter of renewed conflict hangs heavy over the region. The ceasefire, while holding, is fragile at best. Both sides remain deeply distrustful of each other, and the underlying issues that sparked the conflict remain unresolved. The recent violence has left a trail of devastation in its wake, particularly in Gaza. The human cost of the conflict is staggering, with countless lives lost and many more forever scarred. The international community has called for restraint and a return to negotiations. However, the path to peace is fraught with obstacles. Years of mistrust, broken promises, and failed negotiations have created a seemingly insurmountable divide between the two sides. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of regional and international actors with their own agendas and interests. The recent ceasefire offers a glimmer of hope, a chance for diplomacy to prevail. However, the clock is ticking, and the opportunity for peace may be fleeting. The world watches with bated breath, hoping that this time the guns will fall silent for good, or the Gaza Strip, a densely populated coastal enclave, has been ravaged by the latest round of fighting. The scale of destruction is staggering. Homes, hospitals, schools, and vital infrastructure lie in ruins. The once bustling streets are now littered with rubble and debris, a grim testament to the ferocity of the conflict. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is nothing short of catastrophic. The UN estimates that over 2 million people in Gaza are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. The healthcare system, already on the brink of collapse before the recent escalation, is now overwhelmed. Hospitals are struggling to cope with the influx of casualties, and there is a severe shortage of essential medical supplies. The lack of clean water, sanitation, and electricity has exacerbated the already dire humanitarian situation. The ongoing blockade has severely restricted the flow of goods and services into Gaza, leaving its inhabitants grappling with shortages of food, fuel, and other essential commodities. The psychological toll of the conflict is immeasurable. The people of Gaza, particularly children, have endured unimaginable trauma. The constant fear of violence, the loss of loved ones, and the destruction of their homes have left deep psychological scars. The international community must act swiftly and decisively to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Adding to the already dire situation in Gaza is the looming threat to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, or UNRWA. This organization, a lifeline for millions of Palestinian refugees, faces an existential crisis as Israel threatens to ban its operations. UNRWA provides essential services to Palestinian refugees in Gaza, including education, healthcare, and social services. The organization's work is critical to the well-being of millions of people who rely on it for their survival. Israel accuses UNRWA of bias and incitement against it. However, the international community has widely condemned the proposed ban. Critics argue that it would have devastating consequences for Palestinian refugees and further destabilize the region. The potential ban on UNRWA is a deeply concerning development. It is a blatant attempt to undermine the rights and well-being of Palestinian refugees. The international community must stand firm in its support of UNRWA and ensure that it can continue to provide vital assistance to those who need it most. The plight of Palestinian refugees is a matter of international concern and responsibility. The economic ramifications of the conflict are far-reaching, impacting both Israel and Gaza. The cost of the conflict in terms of human life, infrastructure damage, and lost economic opportunities is immeasurable. The Israeli economy, while robust, has not been immune to the effects of the conflict. The ongoing security threat has led to increased military spending, diverting resources from other vital sectors. The tourism industry, a significant contributor to the Israeli economy, has suffered a severe blow due to the conflict. Gaza's economy, already fragile before the recent escalation, now lies in ruins. The blockade, coupled with the destruction of infrastructure and businesses, has brought the economy to its knees. The unemployment rate has skyrocketed, and poverty has become rampant. The economic devastation in Gaza is a recipe for further instability and despair. The international community must work towards lifting the blockade and supporting the reconstruction of Gaza's economy. Economic development is crucial for fostering peace and stability in the region. Section 5. Netanyahu's controversial visit, a diplomatic tightrope walk. The recent visit of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House has further inflamed tensions. Netanyahu, facing mounting international pressure and calls for his indictment on war crimes, sought to rally support for Israel's actions. The visit, seen by many as a diplomatic tightrope walk, has drawn criticism from human rights groups and some members of the international community. Netanyahu's visit highlights the complex and often contradictory nature of international diplomacy. It underscores the delicate balance that world leaders must strike between condemning human rights abuses and maintaining strategic alliances. The visit also brought to the fore the deep divisions within the international community regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While some countries remain staunch allies of Israel, others have been critical of its actions in Gaza. The international community must find a unified voice and work towards a just and lasting solution to the conflict. Section 6. Voices from the rubble: Palestinian perspectives. The Palestinian narrative, often drowned out by the din of conflict, is one of resilience, resistance, and a yearning for justice. Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank have endured decades of occupation, displacement, and violence. Their stories are heartbreaking testaments to the human cost of this enduring conflict. Many Palestinians feel a sense of despair and hopelessness. They see no end in sight to the cycle of violence and believe that the international community has failed them. They feel that their voices are not being heard, their suffering ignored. Despite the hardships they face, Palestinians remain steadfast in their determination to achieve their right to self-determination. They continue to demand an end to the occupation, the right of return for refugees, and a just and lasting peace. Their voices, often silenced by the powerful, deserve to be heard. The world must listen to the stories of the Palestinian people, understand their grievances, and work towards a solution that addresses their legitimate aspirations. Section 7. The Israeli perspective: security concerns and existential threats. The Israeli narrative is one rooted in security concerns and a history marked by existential threats. Israel views Hamas, the de facto ruling authority in Gaza, as a terrorist organization committed to its destruction. The rockets fired from Gaza into Israel, while indiscriminate and causing terror among civilians, are seen as a constant threat to Israeli security. Israel argues that its actions, including the blockade of Gaza and military operations, are necessary to protect its citizens from terrorism. It emphasizes the right of self-defense and the need to combat terrorism in all its forms. The Israeli public is deeply divided over the conflict. While some support a hardline approach, others believe that a negotiated settlement is the only path to peace. The Israeli government faces the daunting task of balancing security concerns with the need to find a sustainable solution to the conflict. The Israeli perspective, while often differing drastically from the Palestinian narrative, is essential to understanding the complexities of the conflict. Section 8. The international community, a chorus of condemnation and calls for peace. The international community has been vocal in its condemnation of the recent violence in Israel and Gaza. Governments and international organizations have called for an immediate ceasefire and a return to negotiations. However, there is a growing sense of frustration over the lack of progress towards a peaceful resolution. The United States, Israel's closest ally, has faced criticism for its perceived bias towards Israel. The U.S. has often vetoed UN resolutions condemning Israeli actions, drawing accusations of double standards and hindering efforts to hold Israel accountable for its actions. The international community's response to the conflict has been hampered by divisions among its members and a lack of political will. Some countries prioritize their strategic interests over human rights concerns, while others are reluctant to pressure their allies. The international community must overcome its divisions and work towards a unified and principled approach to the conflict. Section 9. The road ahead, towards a lasting peace or continued conflict. The future of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains uncertain. The ceasefire, while providing a much-needed respite from the violence, is merely a band-aid on a deep and festering wound. The underlying issues that have fueled this decades-long conflict remain unresolved. The path to a just and lasting peace will require compromise, empathy, and a willingness to break free from the shackles of the past. Both sides must acknowledge the suffering and grievances of the other. They must be willing to engage in good faith negotiations and make difficult concessions to achieve a lasting peace. The international community has a crucial role to play in facilitating dialogue, providing humanitarian assistance, and holding all parties accountable for their actions. The time for empty rhetoric and symbolic gestures has passed. The world must demand action, accountability, and a genuine commitment to peace from all sides. The alternative is too grim to contemplate, a future where violence reigns supreme and hope withers away.